The 1400 class 042 tank engines have, for the longest time, been one of my favourite locomotives from the Great Western Railway, on par with the one-off Pacific No. 111 the Great Bear and the 7200 class 282 tank. As such, I thought it was about time I made a video about the 1400s. This video will focus on the new Caledonia Works model, and not the original Victory Works version released in October 2014, although I'll still bring up the VW 1400 as necessary. And to be fair to this older model, it has aged reasonably well. CW's 1400 pack was apparently done as a special commission, and released on the 8th of March 2025. It's available to buy from their website for £20, or $47.47 NZD at full price. Incidentally, if I could afford to commission something, it may not surprise anyone to know that I would want a developer, be it CW or someone else, to model some New Zealand locomotives. Either the F-Class 060 saddle tank, the WW Class 464 tank, or KA Class 482 tender engine. The KA would of course be in both streamlined and unstreamlined variants, so that way you're not restricted to only running a variant with the streamlining, which I find rather ugly. The 1400 was a class of 042 tank engines designed by Charles Collett as an updated version of the 517 class, and built between 1932 and 1936. They were specially equipped for running with autocoaches, a type of passenger coach with a driver's cab at one end, thus removing the need to uncouple the locomotive and run around the train at each end of the journey. The so-called auto train was often seen on rural branch lines, but sometimes ran on parts of the main line too. These locomotives were originally designated as the 4800 class, but had to be reclassified and renumbered in 1946, when 12 examples of the 2800 class 280s were renumbered in the 4800 range upon conversion to oil firing. Collett's 042 tanks never reverted to their original numbers, even after those 2800s were converted back to coal firing. A significant moment in the 1400s history took place in the early 1950s, when 1401 famously appeared in the Titfield Thunderbolt, a film that I still haven't seen. In any case, as branch lines closed down and diesel locomotives or rail cars came on the scene, there was less work available for the 1400s. Withdrawals began in 1956 and ended in 1965, with the last two remaining in service being 1442 and 1450. Another notable member of the class is 1436, known for apparently being the specific basis for the North Western Railway's No. 11, Oliver. Out of the 75 members of this class, only 4 have survived into preservation. The survivors are 1420 at the South Devon Railway, 1442 as a static exhibit in the Tiverton Museum of Mid-Devon Life, 1450 at the Severn Valley Railway, and 1466 at the Didcot Railway Centre. 1466 is notable for being the first locomotive purchased by the Great Western Society, and I'm hoping to see the real thing when I go to Didcot later this year. CW's pack also comes with the Diagram A43 Autocoach in either BR Maroon or Blood and Custard liveries. The inclusion of only BR liveries makes sense because the A43 dates back to 1953, so no examples of this class would have ever worn GWR liveries in service. As far as I know, only 10 examples of this variant were built, with 2 of them surviving into preservation. Personally, I would have liked to see the diagram A27 autocoach included as well, but what we have got in the pack is still better than no autocoaches at all. From what I gather, Mr. Wilson did try to make the autocoach drivable but couldn't get the scripting to work. There is a workaround in the form of a passenger view in the autocoach's cab, so I guess you can pretend to drive from this end. That reminds me of the numerous occasions when I've used a GWR towed brake van as a glorified driving trailer by going to the passenger view camera on the veranda. Meanwhile, the autocoach included with the Victory Works 1400 is drivable, and although I didn't think to test it to make sure, I'm pretty sure VW's autocoach is not compatible with the CW 1400. One of numerous areas where CW improves upon the VW 1400 is the selection of included liveries, which range from the class's introduction in 1932 right through to the preservation era. The selection is as follows: GWR Green, 1932 to 1934, GWR Green, 1934 to 1942, GWR Black, 1942 to 1945, GWR Green, 1945 to 1948, British Railways lined black with Gill Sans lettering or the early crest, BR unlined black in clean or weathered states, BR unlined green in clean or weathered states, BR lined green with the early or late crests and in clean or weathered states, and special preservation era liveries for 1420 and 1450. As for features, these are pretty much the same as what I've come to expect from a product with Locomotion 2.0 scripting, so for the sake of not repeating myself from previous reviews, I'll refer you to the product listing on CW's website, where you can find all the features. One feature that I will focus on for a moment is the customization options. The specific details you can customize are the running number, the shed code, whose position varies depending on whether you're in a Great Western or BR variant, bunker steps, a top feed, whatever that means, the whistle guard, safety valve bonnet, and the nameplate or number plate colour. However, as pointed out in the manual, the amount of customizability depends on which era and variant of the locomotive you've selected. Personally, I think the 1400 looks better with a brass instead of painted safety valve bonnet, but that's just me. The driving instructions are pretty much the same as other CW products I've looked at recently, such as the LNER P1 Class 282, LSWR T14 Class 460, and even the one-off LNWR 222 number 3020, Cornwall. For the sake of not repeating myself again, I recommend checking out the video I made about Cornwall for a rundown on the driving instructions if you haven't got the 1400 yet, since the Autotanks manual is only available within the addons.zip folder. Looking in the interior of the Diagram A43 Autocoach, I noticed that the passenger figures are just about the most realistic I've ever seen in TS. I would go so far as to say that they look better than the NPCs in Train Sim World, which is really saying something. When I was looking at the Autocoach's roof, I realised that the textures remind me of Armstrong Powerhouse's Mark I coaches, albeit with a lower resolution. A minor downside on the 1400 herself is the lack of opening cab windows, although you can move the crew shields and seats. As for what the 1400 is like to drive, she's not too difficult, even when you've got the advanced mode turned on. Even after just one trip with the 1400, that being from Axminster to Lyme Regis with 1436, I thought this locomotive was a pleasure to drive. She has a pretty good buck around 24 miles per hour, and steams well if you keep the fire mass and water at the right levels, without referencing Avicii. With a water capacity of only 800 gallons and a coal capacity of I think 2 imperial tons, these engines are not at all suitable for longer journeys along the main line. Instead, they're better suited to branch lines, shorter runs along the main line, or shunting in a yard. To summarise, Caledonia Works did a pretty good job with their 1400 class add-on, with my favourite aspect of it probably being the wide variety of liveries. The pack presents reasonable value for money, although I don't blame you if you think the lack of a drivable autocoach and the non-auto-fitted 5800 class let it down somewhat. Going forward, I think the 1400 will end up becoming one of my go-to motive power options whenever I feel like pottering about on a branch line. At the end of the day, I think CW's rendition of Collett's iconic auto tanks deserves an 8 out of 10.